Hey man, I have no idea how he is able to do it every single time. In a game where Tyrese Haliburton didn't look like his normal self, he still walks out as the hero. Game winning shot now in the first round, in the second round, in the conference finals, and now in the NBA finals. Are we being serious? This is one of the most peculiar individual runs you'll ever see. Because if you ask yourself, oh, who's had the clutchest run in NBA history, right? In a postseason run, you're usually going to talk about guys that's averaging 25 to 30 a night. This man just had a game where he had, 14 points? I don't even know what the final box score was. 14 or so points. And still got the ball in his hands. I'm watching. And they get the rebound, right? And I'm like, okay, Rick Carlisle's probably going to call timeout. Tyrese Haliburton is struggling to get the ball up the court. But no, Rick understands that he's got the clutchest player in the league on this team. Because damn it, I don't know how we can say otherwise at this point. If a player does not miss game-winning and game-tying shots, how can he not be the clutchest player in the league? I had to go to the basement. I ran to the basement like, Kenny, why? I got these stacks and stacks and stacks of jerseys. Back here, I've had my GOAT, Fee, on the back of this chair for like 2 years now. Ladies and gentlemen, after game number 1 of the playoffs or the finals, a series that everybody said wasn't going to be good, by the way. After game number 1 of the finals, I may have to replace Fee with the signed Alley jersey. Matter of fact, while I do that, you're going to hear from this sponsor. Shout out to them. This video is brought to you by Bombas. Bombas is a comfort-focused premium basics brand with the mission to help people in need. Bombas is absolutely elite. I've said it before, I'll say it again. In my house, it is very important that you have a pair of house shoes, and Bombas has been my go-to house shoe for a few years now. But it's not just house shoes, it's underwear, it's socks, it's t-shirts, and more. Earlier, I mentioned that they had a mission in mind, and that mission is to help people in need, because with every purchase, one thing is donated to the homeless. See, back in 2013, the people that created Bombas found out that the most asked for things at homeless shelters was socks, so they made it their mission to help those people, and it makes you feel good because you get something that you need, and you also help somebody that need it as well. So you get to feel good while doing good, because if you hit the link in the description, use code Kenny20, you can get 20% off your first purchase with Bombas. That is an absolute steal. Shout out to Bombas again for sponsoring this video. I won't lie. It don't look as good as the Lynx jersey, but for today's video, you got to show the love. You got to show the respect to Hallie. This game is very interesting. We saw very early on that Coach Mark decided to go with Cason Wallace in the lineup instead of Isaiah Hartenstein. And you know, if you watch this game, the turnovers that the Pacers had in this one, it just felt like, you know, the most smothering defense of all time was the most smothering defense of all time. But the one silver lining of it all, something I even tweeted about, even with them turning the ball over 19 times in the first half, it only equated to 9 points off turnovers for the OKC Thunder. That is a blessing. And part of that is the OKC Thunder were generating good looks in these turnovers and weren't making them. But also the Indiana Pacers played phenomenal transition defense all game long. They completely gave up on any opportunity to grab a bunch of offensive rebounds. They decided that we need to get back, just like this team, or just like us, this team that we're going against is the team that wants to run. They want to get in transition, and we're not going to allow them to do that. I thought that early on, Pascal Siakam did a really good job of taking advantage of the mismatches, right? In a series where you are the underdog, the heavy underdog, you have to try to find the one thing, the two things that you can take advantage of and let it be your bread and butter. In this one, it was them being able to get Pascal Siakam switched with Cason Wallace on his back, Alec Caruso on the back, and very early in this game, one thing I liked that Pascal Siakam did do, and he kind of steered away from this a little bit in the second half, which I didn't like as much, is that as soon as he touched the ball with the mismatch, it was a bucket. He wasn't overthinking. He wasn't looking for a pass out. He wasn't waiting for the help side to come over. It was like, give me the ball and I'm going to go up. It did bite them in the ass a few different times because some of the turnovers that they ended up having were like entry passes to Miles Turner, who's just not very good at finishing at the rim in the first place. But Miles Turner having a small defender trying to get him the ball. No. OKC just going to take that. And the same thing with Pascal Siakam. I thought, again, they did a good job there. The Haliburton thing, him hitting his game winner changes the whole conversation about his game completely. Because very early on, if you look at the previews that I did, whether it be on numbers on the board or whatever, we talked about in the 2 regular season games that OKC played against the Indiana Pacers, Lou Dort / the OKC Thunder have been really able to get Tyrese Haliburton out of this game completely. It was his lowest usage of any games or any opponent so far this season, and he just didn't take many shots. He didn't really have the ball. He played off ball. And I was hoping that they tried to figure out a way to get Haliburton Haliburton going, even though Lou Dort was going to be his primary defender. And they weren't really doing that. And low-key, it kind of ended up being a blessing because they running a lot of their actions in the second half through Nimhard. And Nimhard, even though Tyrese Haliburton hits the biggest shot of the game and the game that ends up winning it, Nimhard in this fourth quarter, let me recheck because I didn't write it down. Let me see if I could quickly go through. In the fourth quarter, he had 8 points, 2 of 5, step back three made free throws. Like, he was really good during that stretch where they ended up winning. So I was hoping to see a little bit more of Tyrese Haliburton in secondary actions or as a screener. We saw it every once in a while, and then sometimes he did become the screener, and they got the switch. And when you're going against a team with so many great defensive players, I feel like I'm glazing OKC even though they lost. They have so many great defensive players that, like, you get the switch, right? And the switch happens to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because you're not going to get the switch on Cason Wallace or Alex Caruso or Dub of Dort. In a lot of cases, SGA is the worst perimeter defender on the court. So Tyrese Haliburton gets the switch of him being the screen man, but instead of him trying to attack SGA, it ended up being just another pass out to something else. And I got pretty frustrated with that because I thought that this was one of the few opportunities that Tyrese Haliburton would have to get to the basket and break down his defense. I think early on, a lot of the turnovers that we saw were like, nerves. I think Obi Toppin in that first stint that he had was, whoo, shout out to him because he redeemed himself heavily. But that first stint, I think he had 3 turnovers in 4 minutes time. It was really, really bad. But the other ones were them trying to play this free-flowing ball swingy type game. And OKC don't really like that. And I thought in the second half, they simplified everything. The one advantage I thought that the Pacers had going into the series is how creative they can be on the offensive side of the ball. That creativity ended up being like a curse in the first half, them trying to generate, these open looks off the second pass or the third pass, and those things weren't really there. And in the second half, I thought they simplified everything. It's like, hey, we're going to try to get a paint touch. We're going to go up if we got that paint touch, or we're just going to swing it one pass. Some of the shots they ended up hitting off the one pass were contested shots, but that might have been the best shot you can generate against this OKC team, whether it be the corner 3 that Miles Turner hit off the goddamn glass, or the 17 3-pointers that Obi Toppin took that were wide open. This is just them. I saw somebody on Twitter call them the Possum Pacers, because they're gonna play dead, but they're never actually dead. And it's fourth quarter, and the biggest lead during that fourth quarter, I did write that in my notes. The biggest lead ended up being 15-point lead with 9 minutes to go. They hit a shot, and on the broadcast, they're like, the biggest lead of the night for OKC. 9 minutes. The first lead of the game for the Pacers is the game winner. That's nuts. That's just overall nuts for them not giving up. I thought that the Pacers also did one thing that probably going to go under notice here. Again, I mentioned their defense in transition in that first half after they turned the ball over 19 different times, but they prevented the OKC Thunder from playing any brand of beautiful basketball as well. Where it's like, hey, man, if you want to play single shade, we're going to let you run and take your shots. If you want to play single coverage stuff, Dub, we're going to let you do that. We're not allowing y'all to swing the ball either. And in this game, OKC ended up with just how many assists they ended up having? 13 assists on almost 40 makes. They had 39 makes, and only 13 of those were off a pass. That's pretty damn good for the Indiana Pacers, man. I don't know if that's OKC not doing a good enough job of getting them in rotations, or if the Pacers just didn't allow them to do that. And then now that we got, 3 days in between games, I can rewatch a lot of this stuff and really come to a conclusion. But that swing, dribble, cut thing, like, it didn't end up working in the first half. But in the second half, just simplifying the O. And Nimhard doing an amazing job. Turner doing an amazing job down the stretch of just hitting shots. And OKC went extremely cold. One thing, if I am going to be critical of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for anything, I do believe that some of the times when his team is back against the wall, the other team is going on the run, he feels the need to, like, come on, I got us. And he's the MVP of the league. I'm not asking him not to do that, but sometimes it overextends itself just a little bit. And I thought that might have been the case in this game down the stretch because they didn't generate a bunch of good looks. They truly didn't. So that was one of the most interesting things about the game. As much as we got to give praise to the Indiana Pacers on this comeback, some of these stats are insane. I mean, OKC took 16 more shots. They had 18 less turnovers. 16 more shots, 18 less turnovers, and lost. What? These stats don't make any sense whatsoever. And here we are. The pace that the Pacers have been able to play with throughout their first couple series have been, again, one of their greatest features about their team. But then being able to slow down the pace in the second half, I think it just threw OKC off just more than I could have ever anticipated. I don't know. I have a podcast to shoot in the morning, so I have to rewatch the entire second half to kind of get into it a little bit more. So if you want me to cover more of game number one, that podcast will be coming out afternoon tomorrow. Again, we got so many days in between games that I can't go to bed. I got to be up very early, but I cannot go to bed. I have to rewatch this game, or at least the second half, because this was a really good one, man. There was way too many for my liking conversations about it being too small in markets or this and that. I even saw this morning people on TV talking about it being the easiest path to the finals ever for the Indiana Pacers, which is just some bullshit because they said the same thing about the Boston Celtics last year. They said the same thing in 2023. They said the same thing in 2022. Like in 2020, of course, the bubble, everybody talk about the Lakers. Who else? It was the Nuggets run. The Nuggets didn't beat a team over 50 wins. It just feels like there's always the Warriors run was plagued with injuries. It's just too much conversation about the shit that doesn't matter in basketball. This was a chess match between two coaches and a big ass shot, a shot you will always remember in game one. And I can't wait to rewatch it. Let me know what you think.